थिंक वी आर लाइव बट एक बार चेक कर लेते हैं. Uh, okay, so welcome everyone. Uh, Welcome to the first talk of this year by Crohn's and Colitis Squad. I am Nikhil, and today evening we have Dr. Saurav Kedia with us. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Gastroenterology at AIIMS, and he also attends to patients in the AIIMS OPD and the IBD clinic, and is also an active researcher and has over 150 research papers in gastroenterology, and many of them are on IBD. And he's also very revered amongst his patients. He's a very kind doctor, and I'm really honored and very excited to have him with us. Today we'll be discussing a very important topic, biologics for IBD. So thank you, sir, for joining us today, and thank you for giving giving us this opportunity, and thank you for talking to us. So, shall I begin, sir?
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
So, thank you, Nikhil, for this kind introduction. And I'm really honored to be a part of this great initiative by you. And it's an excellent initiative to spread about the awareness of IBD, and I congratulate you for that. So, I am Dr. Saurav Kedia, working at the All India Institute, New Delhi. And so now I'm ready to answer the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, let me just confirm that we are audible. Okay, we are audible. Okay, so the first question is, in layman terms, what are biologics and how does it help to alleviate the symptoms of IBD?
Okay, so to be very, very simple, so biology is a science related to living beings. So biologics are the molecules which are derived from living beings. So broadly, by biologics, what we mean are the monoclonal antibodies. So what is antibody? Antibody is basically a protein which acts against a specific antigen or binds to a specific antigen. So our body produces multiple antibodies in response to multiple antigens. And so these biologicals are these monoclonal antibodies which can be derived from human beings, which can be derived from, say, cell lines. Cell lines means which can be derived, made in the cells, cultures, and then produced and then marketed through a stringent process. So biologics basically are biological agents or bioactive molecules derived from living beings. Monoclonal antibodies are the most important of these compounds, and monoclonal means that they are derived from the same type of cell. So clonal, like if a tissue has cells, then all cells will be different. But monoclonal cells means that these cells are derived from a single clone and they are same cells. They are derived from these monoclonal cells. So these are the monoclonal antibodies, and when they are used for any therapeutic purpose, then they act against a specific target or a specific antigen. So if we take the example of inflammatory bowel disease, then the first monoclonal antibody which was approved, say in 1999 or maybe around more than 2 decades, was the monoclonal antibody against the tumor necrosis factor alpha. So what is TNF alpha? TNF alpha is a cytokine. Again, cytokine is a protein or a molecule which is produced in the body which has multiple functions. So there are certain of these, I may say, proteins which increase the inflammation in the body. There are certain which decrease the inflammation in the body. So what is IBD? IBD is inflammatory bowel disease, which is characterized by increased inflammation. So how does IBD occur is that the immune cells of the body, they act against the gut mucosa to cause ulcers, and these ulcers in turn cause the symptoms of IBD. So these immune cells, how do they damage? They can damage by producing multiple molecules, proteins, or what we may call as cytokines. So TNF alpha is one of them. So it has been shown that it is elevated in the mucosa of these patients, in the blood of these patients. And if this TNF is inhibited, then the inflammation goes down. So antibody which binds to this TNF will lead to decreased activity of TNF. And this in turn has been shown to reduce the symptoms of inflammatory bowel disease. So the first antibody which was developed was anti-TNF antibody, and the initial antibody was infliximab, which was a chimeric antibody. So chimeric antibody means the half of the molecule was derived from mouse, half of the molecule was derived from human beings. Then came adalimumab, which was a fully humanized antibody against TNF. Then we had certolizumab, and the last in this lot was golimumab. We have one more antibody against TNF, which is etanercept, but this is not effective in patients with IBD. I will not go into the biology of it, but this is only used for patients with rheumatoid arthritis, which again is an inflammatory condition characterized by high TNF, and the TNF act against this. So this is first biological which was used in IBD. Then we have another agent which is known as vedolizumab. It again is a biologic, but it has a different mechanism of action. So what happens is that our gut or every part of the body is supplied by blood vessels, and the inflammatory cells, which are known as leukocytes, which is one of them, go into these blood vessels, and from these blood vessels they go into the respective tissue. So intestine will also have a blood supply, and from the intestine these cells will come into the intestinal mucosa or in the intestinal lining, and they will then act or damage the tissue. So if we stop these cells from coming out from the blood vessel into the intestine, then we can decrease the inflammation. So this is what vedolizumab does. It is a gut selective agent which acts on the receptors on the cells, on these inflammatory cells, and stops them from coming into the gut. So this again is a biological or a monoclonal antibody. The third, which is being used clinically, there are many which are in development, but these three are approved for use in patients with IBD, is ustekinumab. So this again acts against a different cytokine. Like infliximab acts against TNF alpha. So this acts against IL-23, IL-12 complex. So this again is a pro-inflammatory. Pro-inflammatory means which increases the inflammation as a cytokine, and inhibiting this cytokine decreases the inflammation. So this again is a biological agent. So we have three biologics which are at present approved for use in patients with inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay. So under what circumstances are biologics prescribed to someone with IBD, and how do doctors decide that a patient is a good candidate for this therapy?
Yeah. So see, there are different approaches to manage patients with IBD, and there are different concepts. But what we usually are following is, in most of the patients, is a step-up therapy. So for example, there is a patient of ulcerative colitis. There are two types of IBD you all must be knowing, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. So this patient of ulcerative colitis comes with increased symptoms in the form of increased stool frequency and increased bleeding. So then we have certain clinical and endoscopic criteria to define the severity of disease. And based upon that severity, we start the patient on a particular treatment. So for a first presentation, if a patient has mild or moderate disease, then we will start the patient on oral medications, which are known as 5-aminosalicylic acid compounds. If a patient has severe disease, we will start the patient on oral steroids. Now then the patient will be followed up. So steroids are a class of medication which have significant side effects if they are used multiple times. They can cause bone weakness, cataract in these eyes, and multiple side effects. So there are some patients who will do well only on the initial agent, which is the oral 5-ASA. There are some patients which will require only one course of steroid, and there are some patients who will require multiple courses of steroids. So when the patient requires multiple courses of steroids, then we have to give a steroid sparing agent. So usually we start with an oral drug which is known as azathioprine. Now suppose if a patient who is steroid dependent, by steroid dependent I mean the patient is dependent on steroid. Whenever we reduce this dose of steroid, we stop the steroid, patient will have increased activity. And that patient is not able to tolerate or does not respond to azathioprine. He has side effects with azathioprine, or he does not tolerate or he is requiring steroid even after azathioprine. Then this patient would be a candidate for these biologic agents. Secondly, there are some patients of ulcerative colitis who have very severe disease activity, fulminant disease which we call. Then they will require inpatient management, hospitalization, and they will require steroids again, but these will be injectable form. They will be given injectable steroids. And if the patient does not respond to these injectable steroids, then again he would be a case for biological agents, like he would require infliximab. So these would be two broad indications for patients with ulcerative colitis. For a patient with Crohn's disease, again, like ulcerative colitis, steroid-dependent disease, patient is requiring multiple courses of steroids, not responding to these immunomodulators such as azathioprine. Again, he would be a candidate for biologics. So Crohn's disease patients may have extra complication which is known as fistula, perianal fistula. So if a patient has these fistulae in the perianal area from which pus is discharging, mucus is discharging, this again is an indication for biologics. There are some patients who have very aggressive disease. By aggressive disease, I mean they have very severe disease. They have very severe symptoms, severe disease activity, they are malnourished. Again, these patients would benefit from biologics. Then there are some patients who have undergone surgery. But unlike ulcerative colitis, patients with Crohn's disease have a chance of recurrence after surgery. So again, those patients who have a chance of recurrence after surgery may again require biological agents. In India, till 6 months back, we only had infliximab and adalimumab, that is the anti-TNF agents. So we have maximum experience with these two agents only as of now.
Yes. So, like you mentioned, there are side effects of steroids. So what about biologics? How safe are these drugs? And what are the possible side effects and how frequently do they happen?
Yeah. So, see, the side effect, any drug which is given or any external compound given to the body will have side effects. So, the pathophysiology of IBD is increased inflammation. The immune cells of the body act against the gut mucosa. So, to alleviate the symptoms, we give agents which decrease the inflammation or which cause suppression of this immune response. So, if we are giving an agent which suppresses the immune response, it will not only act on the gut, but it will act on in the other areas of the body. So, if it decreases the immunity, it will increase the chances of infection. Now, biological agents, we will divide the side effects, I'm coming back again, into acute and the chronic reactions. So biologicals are proteins. Okay? So whenever our body receives any external protein, the body will try to react against it, will form antibodies against it. So there are some patients who, when given biologics, may develop a reaction, an infusion reaction or a reaction or an anaphylactic reaction against this. So this may occur in 1 to 2% of the patient, which will be an acute side effect. The chronic side effect will be a consequence of the suppressed immunity caused by these agents. Okay? So which will increase the chance of infection. Now India is endemic for tuberculosis. There are lots of cases of tuberculosis still in India, and it is one of the highest endemic regions if we see the entire world. So what happens is that the cytokine TNF-alpha, which we have been discussing, is very important in controlling the tubercular infection. So it forms, it contains the bacilli within these cells, which is known as granuloma, because of which the bacillus does not disseminate and does not causes infection in other parts of the body. So if this TNF is inhibited, the tuberculosis can flare. Okay. So if we look at our Indian population, then about 30% of our population may have latent tuberculosis, or 20 to 25%. That is, the patient may have contracted the tubercular bacilli, but the body's immunity controlled it. The bacillus is there, the bacteria is there, but it is suppressed by the body because of this immune activity. However, if we decrease this immunity, this bacteria will get a chance to act against, वो active हो जाएगा और अपनी, then it can act. So like HIV, a patient who develops HIV will be at a higher risk of tuberculosis. Why? Because the body's immunity goes down. Similarly, if we give anti-TNF agent, the TNF will be suppressed, and this patient would be at a higher risk of tuberculosis. So if the patient is already infected and on biologic the tuberculosis flares up, it is known as tubercular reactivation. And this is a major problem in our country. And about 10% of patients who are given these agents have a risk of or may develop tuberculosis. So we need to be very cautious and very stringent in assessing these patients before we give them biologicals. So what we do is we get tests done to detect what is I talked about is latent tuberculosis. So we get a blood test which detects the evidence of latent tuberculosis. We get, all of you must have heard about this tuberculin skin test or the MON2 test, which is in which the tubercular antigen is injected in our skin. We get that test done. We get the patient's chest X-ray, and we get a CT scan of the patient's chest of the patient. We see all these investigations, and we see if there is any evidence of hidden or latent tuberculosis. So latent tuberculosis is not disease; it's only a manifestation of its infection and the body's response against that infection. So if we find any evidence, then we give that patient a prophylactic drug to prevent the reactivation of tuberculosis. So if we are very stringent, if we are very thorough in our screening, and if we give the patient a prophylaxis, then the chances of this tuberculosis goes down. So in India, we have to be very, very stringent and meticulous in our screening for tuberculosis before we start the patient on anti-TNF biological. Then there are other infections like urinary tract infection, bacterial pneumonia again, which also can increase in these patients who are on biologicals. This second scare is the scare of malignancy. Again, when the body's immunity goes down, the malignant cells, if they are developing, get a higher chance to proliferate, to divide, and cause certain types of cancers. But this frequency is very, very, very low. Like in our cohort, we have hardly seen any patient developing malignancy. But again, it's reported, well reported, that the chances of malignancy may increase. So these things should be kept in mind. So these are the broad side effects, which I may say, which may develop with these biological agents. But again, any drug which suppresses the immunity will increase the chances of infection.
So, sir, like you said, there are these many side effects. So biologics are notorious among IBD patients. So people are very scared of getting these drugs. So do you think, like, from your explanation, like you said, the process is very stringent and you check on everything. So do you think that patients should hesitate before, like when a doctor
see, if the patient requires it, then he should not hesitate, because if it acts very well and it improves the quality of life in these patients. Yes, the chances of infection are there, but if you give steroids, it also increases the chances of infection. And if you give steroids multiple times, other side effects like diabetes, hypertension, and all also increase. So if a patient requires biologicals, he should not be hesitant. He should consult, should undergo proper screening, and if given under proper screening, given under proper supervision, patient is regular with his doctor, then there should not be any scare or to the patient.
Okay. So how many biologicals are available to patients in India?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, so till 6 months back, we had 2 biologicals. Both were anti-TNF agents. One was infliximab and the other was adalimumab. These were 2 biologicals available in our country. And then 6 months back, vedolizumab was launched, which is now available to our patients.
So 3 biologics, no?
We have 3 biologics now, or 2 classes of biologics.
Okay, so like if we have more classes, then it's better for like patients.
Yes, because it would be better, because there are some patients who do not respond to these agents.
Okay.
They may require. So more the number of options we have, more would be our bandwidth, and we can treat the patients better. But as of now, we have these 2 agents.
And sir, what is the difference between biologics and biosimilars?
Yeah. So see, biologics are patented projects which were developed initially, investing lots of billions of dollars, and then they were developed, went through rigorous testing and all, and they were developed. Now biosimilars, they are, I say, a legitimate copy of these biologicals, which have gone through the same process of the clinical testing and the pharmacological testing, and then they go through a stringent regulatory approval, and then they are approved. The biosimilars are not patented, and the major advantage is that they are very, very cheap as compared to the original compound. There is another class which is known as biomimics. So there is slight difference between these 2 also. Biomimics again are also the copy of these biologicals, but their process has been not so stringent, and they have not undergone that rigorous process of screening and the regulatory approvals and all. So in India, we have infliximab, which is the original molecule, and we have biomimics of these agents. They're not biosimilars.
Okay.
So for adalimumab, we have 4 or 5 agents which are launched, marketed by different companies. Exemptia was the first. So this is a biomimic. Similarly, for infliximab also, we have 2 or 3 agents now, which are again biomimics. So slight difference between the 2, but the biggest advantage is that they have significantly reduced the cost of these agents, so that they have become affordable to our patients. And if you look at the clinical efficacy, then the efficacy is not much different between these 2 agents. It's almost similar.
I think, yeah. So how do doctors decide which biologic is suitable for which patient?
So like, see, 6 months back, we did not have much of option. We only had 2 biologics, infliximab and adalimumab. But again, maybe there are some differences. So, like for example, I gave you the example of acute severe ulcerative colitis, where the patient has severe disease, he is admitted and he is given intravenous steroids and does not respond. In that case, only infliximab is advisable. Adalimumab should not be given. For other indications, ulcerative colitis, both may be given, but infliximab may have slightly better efficacy as compared to adalimumab. For patients with Crohn's disease, both, as per the literature and as per the evidence, both infliximab and adalimumab have similar efficacy, so both can be given. Vedolizumab is available only for the past 6 months, but again, for acute severe ulcerative colitis, vedolizumab is not an option. It again would be an option for steroid-dependent disease. For Crohn's disease, again, it would be an option for steroid-dependent disease. For aggressive disease, for severe disease, and for fistulizing disease, the data is still limited.
So, and sir, are biologics supplemented by other drugs also? In what cases?
Yeah.
Or they are
enough
alone?
Yes. So like I said, that biologics are biological compounds, or they are proteins, or they are compounds which are derived from the living cells. So these proteins, what they have the tendency, the body has the tendency is that whenever it receives any external protein, which is not made by the body, which is extrinsic to the body, our body's immune system tries to react to it. So what our body does is, it forms antibody against these agents, which are known as anti-drug antibodies. So what these antibodies do is that they try to reduce the levels of these agents, and they try to reduce the efficacy of these agents. So what happens with these biologics is, for example, if a patient is started on a biologic, he responds well, but over the period of 1 year, there would be 10 to 15% chance that he will lose his response. By loss of response, I mean is that his symptoms may reappear, even on that dosing schedule of infliximab. And over the next 5 years, there would be 50% chance that this patient may lose response. One of the major reasons for this loss of response would be the formation of these antibodies. Okay, so these antibodies would decrease the levels of these agents and thus reduce the response. So this is known as immunogenicity. So to reduce this immunogenicity, if we give other agent which also suppresses the immunity, it will decrease the formation of these anti-drug antibodies and may increase the response rate of these biological agents. Okay. So for a patient who is being planned to be started on infliximab, we usually supplement or give that patient another immunomodulator agent. Most commonly what we give is azathioprine, which I talked about earlier. So it has been shown that addition of azathioprine reduces the formation of antibodies and hence decreases the chances of loss of response and increases the persistence and response rate of these biologics. But usually the effect is, what I will say is, the maximum effect occurs in the first 6 months to 1 year. So if for this indication we give azathioprine, then we give it for 6 months to 1 year. For adalimumab, the data is controversial. Some studies have shown that it increases the response, some have shown it does not increase. So it is not that recommended for patients who are on adalimumab. But yes, for patients who are on infliximab, we do give these agents. For vedolizumab, again, the data till date does not suggest that addition of immunomodulator improves the response. Again, if you act about supplemental agents, so the anti-TNF agents act best when the patient's nutritional status is good. A serum albumin, which is a protein in the body, is a predictor of response. So if these levels are low, the patient may not respond that better. So if the patient's albumin level is low, what we try to improve the nutritional status of the patient. We may give him supplemental nutrition to improve his albumin, and then if patient can wait, we give these agents so that the response decreases. So this again may be a supplemental agent, but if you talk about drug, then we give these immunomodulators to reduce the immunogenicity of these agents.
And sir, for how long does a patient have to take biologics, and can they be stopped after a patient achieves remission? And in case of a relapse,
this again is a question on which there is no definite answer. But see, biologicals are costly agents; they are associated with side effects. So a patient does sometimes ask and wants to stop this agent. So it depends upon the patient's disease status. So for a patient, for example, if a patient of ulcerative colitis was requiring steroids multiple times, was started on infliximab, and over the last 1 year he has been absolutely fine. He has had no symptoms. In addition to it, if we do his endoscopy, we find that his colon, the mucosa is also normal. There are no ulcers. So this patient is in deep remission. That is, he is at clinical remission also and endoscopic remission also. So this patient, if he is in this state of clinical and endoscopic remission for the past 1 year, may be given the option of stopping the biologic. But again, the decision has to be taken by a joint, I may say, consensus between the patient and the physician. He may stop the biological, but there would be a 50% chance that his disease may come back once the biological is stopped. However, if we give the biological again to that patient, then there is a 80 to 90% chance that this patient may respond. Okay. So a joint discussion, and if the patient agrees and he is ready to take that risk of a 50% chance of flare, biological may be stopped. Now, for example, another case, if a patient of Crohn's disease who has very aggressive disease, he improves. In this patient, it is usually advisable, if the patient is tolerating it well, then continue, don't stop, because this patient will be at a higher chance of relapse. A patient of ulcerative colitis, clinical remission, but the endoscopy shows ulcers. Again, biologic should be continued. So it has to be an individualized decision depending on the patient's current status and the past. If the past disease course has been very aggressive, then we should be hesitant. If the past course has been smooth, he is in complete remission or he is in deep remission at present, then we may think, yes, we may stop this biologic.
Okay, so only if someone is in deep remission do they have that option, and even
He's
then.
doing well for and deep remission for the past 6 months to a year.
Okay, and even then
Then
they
again,
have to accept that 50%
he has
risk.
he has that chance of flare, so he has to be. And if we are stopping biologic, then we have to give some agent. So he may be started on a immunomodulator if he is not, so that there is some drug which has been given to control his activity and to prevent that flare.
And so like so when someone is in biologics, you said na antibodies will happen. So when they are when the therapy is restarted, so this antibody will prevent the biologic from working, or like it will work as before?
Yeah. So it may prevent, but overall 80 to 90% patients do respond. So that is why there was a concept of episodic versus scheduled infusion. So when these biologics were being tested and there were different concepts, so there was one concept of giving only when the patient becomes symptomatic, episodic infusion. So what this did was it increased the chances of antibody formation. So then came the concept of scheduled infusion. For example, infliximab, it is given in an intravenous route. So it is given initially at 3 doses in the first 1.5 months at 0, 2, and 6 weeks, and then given every 8 weeks. So it is a scheduled infusion, which also decreases the antibody formation. Similarly, adalimumab, it is given every 2 weeks. So we give 4 injections, that is 160 milligram, then we give 80 milligram, then we give 40 milligram, and that is continued every 2 weeks. So this decreases the rates of antibody formation. Yes, if they are stopped, if they are restarted again, if they are antibody, they may, but overall the data suggests that 80 to 90% patients will respond if they responded earlier, and they stop when the disease was in remission.
And sir, coming to the dosing, so there are 3 different drugs. So how are these administered?
Yeah. So like infliximab and vedolizumab are given through intravenous infusion. So infliximab, the dose is usually 5 milligrams per kg. So for a 60 kilogram person, it would be 300 milligrams. So it comes in 100 milligram vials. So these are dissolved in, say, a 500 ml of normal saline bottle and given through the intravenous route as a slow infusion over 4 to 6 hours. And again, there is a concept of giving pre-medication before this. So some physicians give hydrocortisone or antihistaminic agent to decrease the infusion reaction. But again, the evidence suggests that the chances of infusion reactions are same if we give or we do not give. So this is given over 4 to 6 hours. And if the patient is started on infliximab, then he is given what is known as induction regimen of 3 doses, which are given at 0, 2, and 6 weeks. So within 1.5 months, the patient will receive 3 doses of 5 milligram per kilogram. And then after that, it is given at 8 weekly interval. So 0 to 6, then 14, 22, like that.
Yes.
Adalimumab has, and similarly, vedolizumab again is a intravenous injection, and the dosing schedule is similar to infliximab, 0 to 6, and then every 8 weeks. Adalimumab is a subcutaneous formulation. So the advantage is that patient does not need to come to the hospital. It can be taken by the patient himself, like patients of diabetes who take insulin syringes. So this can be self-administered by the patient.
Yes.
And so it again has an induction schedule. So by induction schedule, what we do is we try to develop the levels of these antibodies at a certain level so that they are therapeutically active. So it is again given at a dose of 160 milligrams. Then after 2 weeks, 80 milligrams. So it comes as a 40 milligram injection. So 4 injections, 2 injections, and then 40 milligram, 1 injection, and then 1 injection every 2 weeks. So these schedule can change depending on the patient's response. So if the patient is responding well, then we may continue with the same schedule. However, if the patient starts to lose his response, then we will decrease the dosage schedule. So infliximab schedule may come down from 8 weeks to 6 weeks or 4 weeks, depending upon the patient's response. But in general, the recommended dosing schedule is this for these 3 agents.
And sir, for vedolizumab and infliximab, it's daycare procedure, means 4-5 घंटे.
Yeah, it's a daycare procedure. So patient needs to come to the hospital for 4 to 6 hours, then he can go back.
Okay. Our next question is, once a patient is on a biologic, are there any precautions they must take?
Yeah. So like I said, that these patients are at a higher chance of infection. So the precaution what we must take is that if they are taking these infusion agents, then they should always receive it in a hospital, should not get it at home because of the chances of bleak chances of infusion reaction, which can be managed in the hospital. So it should be given under supervision. Secondly, once the patients are on these agents, then they should take precautions to prevent themselves from infection. So they should avoid crowded places and all. And if there is any infected member in the house, if there is any tuberculosis contact in the house, then they should avoid contact with that person. And they should be vigilant. So if any symptom, like if the patient is having fever or weight loss on this agent, then they should report to the physician immediately so that appropriate action can be taken. And they should be in a regular consult with their physician, say every 2 monthly or 3 monthly, and should go as per the advice. Could be any investigation or all, so that their therapy is being monitored properly.
And sir, we have a viewer question. I don't know if it's related to biologics or not. Folitrax 15 milligram injection, is it safe, and in long run does it give remission?
Yeah, so Folitrax is methotrexate. So methotrexate again is an immunomodulatory agent which suppresses the immune response like azathioprine. So methotrexate for ulcerative colitis does not have much of a role. For Crohn's disease, it is a useful agent. So again, for a patient with Crohn's disease, like I said, for ulcerative colitis, if a patient has active disease, he present to us for the first time, he is given steroids. And once he is tapered of steroids, he is given a maintenance agent. So the maintenance agent could either be azathioprine or it could be methotrexate. So usually we start the patient on azathioprine. However, if the patient fails azathioprine or it does not tolerate azathioprine, then the other option could be methotrexate, which is given at weekly interval, and it can be given for a long period of time, but again under supervision and under monitoring. One important thing about methotrexate is that methotrexate is teratogenic. So if a patient is planning to conceive, or if a family is planning to conceive, even if the husband is on methotrexate, he should stop it 3 months prior to conception. So it is a major side effect. Again, methotrexate may have other side effects also, but overall it is a good and a safe drug, and if a patient is tolerating it well, he can continue the injection.
In the long run, for long term.
It can be given in a long, yeah.
So what is the approximate yearly cost of treatment with biologics?
So it depends upon the agent. So for infliximab, if you look at the original compound, it is about 4.5 to 5 lakhs. For the biosimilar agent, it is about 2 to 2.5 lakhs. Again, for adalimumab, it's a biosimilar agent. It is again 2 to 2.5 lakh the yearly cost. Vedolizumab again is costly. It's again more than 5 lakhs per year, or maybe more than that also.
Okay. So as a doctor at AIIMS, you receive a huge volume of patients. And in your experience, what proportion of IBD patients need biologics, and how many among them are able to afford the therapy?
Yeah, see. So if we look at the overall proportion of patients who are on biologics, then about amongst our cohort, about 1.5 to 2% patients are only on biologics. But yes, the percentage who require biologic is higher. It would be, I cannot give the exact figure, but would be about 10 to 15%. The major hindrance to the use of biologics is the cost. So, although there are certain schemes by the government like the Ayushman Bharat or the PPL card, and there are several schemes by which the poor patients are able to get the drugs from the hospital. Or there are certain patients who get reimbursement from the central government health scheme and all. These are several mechanisms by which these patients get. But yes, still the cost is a limiting factor for our patients who require these agents.
And to those patients who cannot afford the therapy, what other alternatives do they have, and how is their quality of life and disease progression affected?
Yeah, so like for example, for a patient with ulcerative colitis. So for a patient with ulcerative colitis, if he is a steroid dependent disease, he is not responding to azathioprine, and he is unable to afford biologics, or he is unable to tolerate biologics, he has side effects on biologics, then the option for this patient is surgery. Okay. Because surgery is a very good option for patients with ulcerative colitis, especially if they have especially for females, if they have not completed their family, then there is a concern of reduced fertility with the surgery. But if they have completed the family, and for males, for aggressive disease, for a patient who is not responding, not tolerating, or not affording biologics, surgery is a curative option. Once the surgery is done, the patient is off any of these medications, and 80 to 90% patients do quite well after surgery. For patient with Crohn's disease, yes, like methotrexate is an option if the patient is not responding to say biologic. Surgery again is an option if the patient has limited disease. Patient can undergo surgery.
Okay.
So I may say these are the option.
Okay,
the other immunosuppressants sometimes or surgery, or sometimes this patient may be given enteral nutrition. But again, this is a short-term option. So surgery, less potent, or other immunosuppressants such as methotrexate, like agents would be options for patients with Crohn's disease.
Okay.
If the biologics does not fit into their treatment algorithm because of loss of response, side effects, or cost.
And sir, we have a viewer question again. They are asking, like you said, the biosimilars in India are biomimics.
Yeah.
Right? And they are almost equally effective as biologics.
Yeah.
So, like, are they recommended? So, are patients using
biomimics? Yeah. So, see, for adalimumab, we only have these agents. We don't have the original compound, which is Humira.
Okay.
So, and for infliximab, again, our patients are getting both. Some patients are getting infliximab, some patients are getting the biomimics, and they are doing well. So, no concern.
So, sir, can we expect any alternative therapy to biologics in the coming future, which are more affordable and equally effective?
Yeah. See, so for the past 2 months, we have had one more agent, which is an oral drug, tofacitinib.
Okay.
So it has a different mechanism of action, but it is a new drug which is useful for patients with ulcerative colitis. But the recommendation for this agent is that it should only be given for patients who have failed anti-TNF agents, who have failed biologics. Then this drug should be given. It is a very costly drug in the West, but in India, it has come at a quite low and affordable rate, and the cost would be about 4,000 to 5,000 rupees a month. So this is a new drug, oral tablet, which is to be taken twice a day. The side effect profile is similar to biologics, but if you go by the book, if you go by the recommendation, then it should only be given for patients who have failed anti-TNF molecule.
So alternatives are being developed.
Yeah, they are being developed and they are coming to India gradually.
And so, as a doctor, what policies or support schemes do you wish that existed so that IBD patients could have a much easier life than they have currently in our India?
Yeah. So like I said, these policies or support for the poor patients who are unable to afford these costly drugs, which may improve their quality of life. There are several such which are being provided by our government, through which patients are benefiting. But if the scope increases or the bandwidth increases so that many more such patients can be included or can be accommodated through these schemes, then their life would become easy. Plus, there are certain other aspects to the life or quality of life of patients with inflammatory bowel disease. Like, the major concern about the patients is the diet. What diet should they take? So, if a center has a good dietitian who can give the dietary counseling to these patients, it is again becoming as one of the important components or pillars in the management of patients for IBD. Like, what diet should they take? What diet should they avoid? How should they manage their diet? Because many of these patients unnecessarily avoid many of the food items because of which they are at a risk of malnutrition. So diet is an important component, and an IBD counselor who can answer to the queries of these patients, who can alleviate their anxiety, again would add to the management and to the quality of life of these patients. So these would be some aspects or some points which would improve the care of patients with inflammatory bowel disease in our country.
So, like counselors, you said, so basically there should be a mechanism for patients to obtain more information about the condition.
Yeah, and there could be patient support groups, patients who are on biologics could be connected to each other so that they can exchange their queries or their experience with each other, and patients who are operated, they again can interact with each other. So these could be some processes through which their quality of life may improve.
And so final question for you. What advice do you have for patient support or advocacy groups so as to alleviate the quality of life for the Indian IBD population of patients?
Like, I think part of the answer was given already. So for the patient support groups, I think important is to talk to the patient, listen to the patient, listen to their concerns, interact with the physician. I think they can be a link or a bridge between the physician and the patient, and can answer many of the questions which physician may not be able to answer because maybe of his time constraint or any other thing. So that would be a big support to the patient, because patients have lots of questions which they have and which they may not be able to ask to the physician, or they are unable to ask to the physician. So if a patient support group has a basic knowledge about what is IBD and the various mechanisms related to IBD drug, to procure drugs, how to say make a drug available at a lower cost to the patient, how to answer to the patient's queries, and the lifestyles related to IBD patients. If they are able to answer to those queries or to the questions, they could definitely reduce the anxiety and the concern of our patients.
So thank you very much, sir, for answering all of our questions. And we hope that everyone who was listening and everyone who will be watching this later get answers to most of their questions. And I think like we have covered almost all aspects of biologics. And yeah, so thank you, sir. Thank you for answering all of our questions.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, sir. So yeah, I think we'll say goodbye now. So
okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Bye.